You have two people attending, right, Marisa?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I know EJ will be a little late, so I'll go ahead with the introduction of what committee this is. So this is the Executive Committee of Community Board 5. For the record, I'd like it known that the exec committee meets once a month for the purpose of being apprised by each committee chair of actions and or discussions that have been taking place at the committee level, which leads to our main purpose, which is to form and finalize the agenda for the full board meeting. The exec committee, we seldom take action. However, we do on rare occasions and in emergency situations. But this evening, we have no such actions, and therefore the committee will not be deliberating or voting on any issues. Members of the public are provided the opportunity to attend the meeting in person, or in case here we are virtually 2 years later. Anyone who's attending the meeting as a non-member may sign in as an attendee. And if you would like to address the committee this evening, your comments will be taken up as new business at the end of our business session. But again, we are taking no positions this evening. We are simply formulating our agenda for our full board meeting on Thursday. So keep in mind that the full board meeting is Thursday evening. And if anyone from the public would like to speak, we encourage them to join either the public hearing or the public session at the end of the full board meeting. Having said that, I think we can move right in. I do have a couple of announcements. One is what you probably all heard by now, that after serving for more than 13 years, Clayton has stepped down from the board. I, for one, am going to miss him terribly. His contributions and to our work and success as a board over the years have been nothing short of outstanding. And it's really hard to imagine CB5 without him. He served alongside me during the entire time I've been chair, and he's always been there for me and especially for the board. So I will be announcing his departure at the full board meeting on Thursday. I'm hoping he'll be able to join us to bid farewell. As a result, and on some super positive notes, I will also be announcing that Craig has taken over the responsibilities of chairing the Parks and Public Spaces Committee with Kim McCall as his vice chair. So congratulations to both Craig and Kim. Did Joseph join us yet? No. I'll welcome him anyway. So we, with Craig stepping down and chairing the Parks Committee, the vice chair position that he held on the former committee known as PSQL, now known as SLAP, is now being filled by Joseph Frewer. So I'm hoping he can join us. I'd like to congratulate him as well. Just to say that I, for one, and know everyone looks forward to working with you all in your new capacities. So welcome to your first meeting, Kim. We're really excited about that. We've been wanting you a part of the team for a long time, so here you are. Everybody's nodding in agreement.
Congratulations.
Right.
Thanks, team. Happy to be here.
Good. Okay, if Joseph joins us, we'll interrupt to say hi and welcome to him as well. I know, Craig, you have to pop off.
Yeah, in a few minutes, a couple minutes.
Okay. All right, so let's get right into our committee reports. Starting with, well, EJ isn't here, so we can't start with, I was going to go in order of how they are on the agenda. So the second one would be land use, unless, should we wait, Sam, for EJ?
I would say go ahead and just put him at the end. I was at the meeting that took place,
Yeah,
but
let me just see what he said. Hold on. He said, I will be late to exec, so I'm expecting him. We'll wait. Okay. All right.
He didn't tell me not to.
Okay.
He didn't tell me to wait.
So that takes us to land use, housing and zoning. Layla.
Hi, good evening, good afternoon. So land use, we had two actions this month. We had one application and then one action that was actually proposed and driven by the committee itself. So the application is for a special permit for additional parking spaces. The building is located in North Chelsea at 213-227 West 28th Street. And this is a new residential, it's actually two new residential buildings that are going up on this particular site, a pretty large residential development. The applicant is proposing to actually build additional parking spaces beyond what he is currently permitted by the zoning resolution. There is a formula in this particular area of our district that basically dictates how many parking spaces are permitted as of right. And for the one building known as Building A, which is a condo, the developer is permitted to construct 24 parking spaces. And in Building B, which is a rental, the developer is permitted to build 20 parking spaces. In addition to these parking spaces, the applicant is seeking a special permit to build an additional 33 parking spaces. The applicant did present, made their case. The committee felt that the permitted as of right parking spaces was sufficient to actually accommodate this residential population that would be located in this new residential building. The area has a non-utilization rate of vehicles of 83%. As per census data as recent as 2020. So, we use this as a map to basically see that, the residential capacity would actually be served by the as of right parking spaces. We also recognize that it is an area that is very well served by public transportation, and that issuing a special permit, granting a special permit in a climate where we're actually trying to reduce congestion and reduce vehicular traffic and vehicular use in the district was a contradiction. So and I would also mention that the developer would propose these parking spaces actually for a 99-year lease, which is almost equivalent to a purchase, and he would offer these parking spaces for $500,000 for a 99-year lease, and so this is just factual. This is not the reason why we deny the application, but just factually for the whole story. So for all the reasons that I spelled out earlier, the committee voted to deny the request for a special permit, and the vote was unanimous, 8-0-0-0.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Renee? You're on mute, Renee.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry, I'm glitching
no,
out.
that's okay.
We didn't ask the applicant, I was there and we should have, we didn't talk about asking for electric charging or anything of that nature at the time, which perhaps we should have. Is that something we could do retroactively?
So this is actually a piece of information that I think was in the application, or something that I actually had the opportunity to discuss with the applicant. They did represent to us that eventually, if every parking space would have access to an outlet, so that every parking space could accommodate an electric vehicle.
Interesting.
That wasn't said at the committee, at the meeting, Layla? Is that what you were just saying?
I don't know if we touched on that at the meeting. I think that, we really looked at the rationale for granting a special permit rather than, in excess of what is already permitted. And I don't know that we went, at the granular level of whether it would serve, gas vehicles or electric vehicles.
Mhm. I don't remember it, but you're saying that we do know that they will, that each,
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
Whether they are, as of right or by special permit,
okay,
every parking space would be retrofitted to allow charging.
okay. Renee,
I know, I don't mean to keep banging on it, but I know that it said that the 83%, does that include moving the cars off the street?
So
The parking with,
the
right.
83% is actually data from the census that basically shows that in this census tract and within a radius of 1/3 of a mile, residents in this district, 83% of residents do not have a car.
Mhm.
So when you use this statistic and you bring it to the number of units that are going to be created in the building, then you can see that the as of right parking is going to serve the needs of people who will have a vehicle, who statistically are likely to have a vehicle.
anything else? Renee?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep banging on at this, but I mean, it's likely though, given the parking is still exists in the area on the street, that providing parking in the sub basement where this would be provided would likely move parking from the street to the sub basement. Perhaps.
So we can speculate. It is a possibility. Basically, the formula for a new building that goes in this particular district says that, for such number of housing units, you're permitted to build such number of parking spaces. And that's what they're going to do. And we have no problem with that. We're not taking away any of that.
Mhm.
Basically, what they're saying is we actually want to be able to we want to be permitted to build more. And the committee basically said, we see no justification to actually allow more parking space than what is already permitted as of right. And, they did tell us about, the fact that there's a number of parking off-site parking spaces that did exist that have been eliminated because buildings were converted. But this is not the way, on a, like the metrics of parking spaces, this is not the way it works. It's not like, like the air rights that can, if they're not used somewhere, then they can be reassigned elsewhere. Each developer has the right to use, their subseller whichever way they want. If they want to put a parking garage, they can. If they decide to put, I don't know, a spa, a swimming pool, or, whatever other use, then, it's their choice. There's no obligation. There is a cap to the number of permitted parking spaces. And in that particular instance, the developer wants to go beyond this cap. And the committee was not convinced that it is, reasonable to grant the special permit. Once again, we're not taking anything away from them. We're just not giving them a special permit for something that they are otherwise not permitted to do.
Okay.
Okay. Renee, I know you had, initially you had a differing viewpoint. Are you troubled by,
I am a bit because I'm glitching. I'm glitching a bit. I am stable. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm
now I
glitching.
can, yeah.
Okay. I am a bit, we've lost a lot of, some of the research that I've done has shown that we've lost a tremendous amount of parking in Manhattan. And along with that, we've added a number of cars. And I recognize that we're moving away from cars, but the reality is that people in New York and people who live in New York also need cars. And the majority of people residential people who use cars do so to leave town for whatever reason. It's not that they're driving around to pick up their dry cleaning or to commute to work. I mean, the research shows that. And so I don't know, I forget how many condos and rental apartments there are in this new building, but I bet that there's more than 44 units, right? And so there's going to be 44 parking spots for this huge, it's a pretty substantial building. And so I would suspect that particularly in the condo building, they can't find them in their building. They're going to go outside on the street, or they're going to look for parking spaces. If there's no parking space, drive the price. They will find parking somewhere. We want to put them off the street. I mean, I thought that was the purpose. We want to have bikes and we want to have walking. So I'd rather them in a sub-basement, and I'd rather them be electric. I don't know. Does anyone else?
Yeah, no, I hear your argument, and I think that this is I totally understand if you were to decide at full board to to vote differently on the resolution. I think the committee was pretty clear in the understanding that going above and beyond what is already permitted is not something that we can justify. That basically, if we use the formula and the metrics that exist in the zoning resolution, it actually correlates with the census data that basically shows that 83% of residents in the district do not have access to a car. And, there is also, some research that shows very, very clearly that adding parking is actually a stimulus drive to actually get people, to encourage people to have cars, which is something that, on a policy level, our committee, board is actually on record saying that, we have to find ways to discourage vehicular traffic in our district and vehicular ownership, and we have to encourage use of public transportation.
I totally understand. And I'm just I'll stop here, but I will say that the research shows that ridership is up with Ubers and taxis hugely. And if we want to stop congestion, and if we want to stop pollution, those are the ways. And it's particularly younger demographics. And the cars are not in Manhattan. The congestion, the pollution are Ubers and taxis primarily. I can share that research with you. I'll stop there. I just have a different.
And I listen. I totally, agree and appreciate this research. I think is totally valid as it pertains to a special permit for additional parking spaces. I don't know that it really has relevance. The issue here is, do we consider that it is justified in any way, shape, or form to make an exemption and grant a special permit to a private developer for, commercial for-profit use? Once again, these parking spaces are going to go for $500,000. It's a lot of money. It is a very, very big business opportunity. And the committee could not find any, public interest justification to actually grant such a generous gift to a private applicant, in the context of otherwise, recognizing that, congestion and vehicular use in the district is a problem.
Thank you.
Just so that some of the newer members now on exec know, what we do at exec meeting is also.
Thank you. I'm glitching. Thank you.
What we do at exec is discuss anything that might be brought up that might be controversial or of a different vote. For instance, if someone who's on exec is deciding to vote in a different manner than they did previously, they usually say it at exec and we talk it out, so that there are really no surprises on Thursday evening, and to perhaps in some cases, as Layla has done, give an explanation, and the person who has brought it up still has the right and the ability to bring it up at the full board meeting. If you're still undecided at this point, that's okay, Renee. If you feel that you have enough, you've done enough of your own sleuthing, for lack of a better word, to find out more information, and you know what you're going to do. Usually that's what we do at this point, just so that the entire exec committee and officers are aware that there may be either a change on Thursday evening or certainly a more robust discussion. So it's fine if you feel that you've had everything you need to say, and we'll go on. But if you wanted to make anything clear at this point, you can do that. I hope Renee is listening. It looks like her video is frozen. Renee, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I appreciate Leila's explanation. I totally get it. I'm on board at this point, given the
Okay.
Renee has a
explained
very glitchy
why
connection, but I think
in
we
particular instance. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't hear, but we'll go on. I'm not quite sure what the outcome was. Leila,
okay,
could
maybe
you-
I will check with Renee offline
Okay.
to make sure that we are you know, on the same understanding, and but you know, I appreciate the opportunity to you know, talk about these issues. It's not a simple application as much as it looks like it's actually simple.
Exactly. And it gives you an opportunity to have a response on Thursday if it does come up.
Yes,
If an opposing
absolutely.
viewpoint comes
Yeah.
up. Absolutely. Okay. Very good. Thanks so much, Renee. Okay, Leila, that was the first one. Did anyone have any comments or questions as a result of Renee's comments? Okay, then we'll go to the second one, Leila.
Okay, so the second item that we discussed at committee is actually not an application, but more of a decision by the committee, and hopefully it will be supported by the board, to take a holistic look at the Penn Station / North Chelsea area. And given what has transpired over the past 2 years with a state-sponsored zoning action that has been very controversial and that has garnered a lot of opposition, and given that the Madison Square Garden special permit is about to expire and is going to come back to us for either an extension or a renewal, or maybe a new special permit altogether, given that we do understand and appreciate that Macy's has expressed an interest in an upzoning in exchange for some transit upgrades in the vicinity of their property. And given that we know the area around Penn Station is in dire need of improvements, both at the public realm level, but also, and more critically, at the underground level for infrastructure, transit, and transportation. And given that up until now, we have not been able to actually review and consider, you know, a fully comprehensive plan for the area. The committee, you know, through conversations and through all the work that we have done dealing with the GPP, which was the state-sponsored proposal, we really felt that it was incumbent on us, Community Board 5, to basically spearhead such plan. So we had a very good and very productive discussion at committee where we basically decided that now was the time to do exactly that. So we are presenting this effort to the, you know, to the full board for their vote and support. The form that this work is going to take will be in the form of a working group. It will be a you know, robust, comprehensive working group that we will put together, that will be led by the community board, but that will be very inclusive. We want really everybody to be at the table and work together so that we can deal with all the issues and not do this piecemeal approach, this, you know, hodgepodge of, you know, a little bit of transit, a little bit of zoning, a little bit of housing, a little bit of nothing altogether, that basically has left us very distressed and very discontent. The intention is not to, really be critical of other plans. We've said our piece on the state plan, and the point is not to relitigate that. We have said everything that there was to say, but it is really to basically go beyond that, recognizing that our community has some needs, that our community is in this particular area is very different from any other community in the city, pretty much, because of the regional and national importance of Penn Station. But at the same time, the issue is impacting us locally very clearly and very obviously. So we are launching this work and this effort, and the resolution that we will present to the full board basically spells out the goals of this effort. The general boundary, although this may be revised as we go along and start the work, and it will be really the opportunity to kick off this effort. And once again, we want this effort to be as inclusive as possible, working alongside our elected officials, of course, as well as civic organizations, scholars, and any luminaries who would feel so compelled to come and work with us and alongside us, so that we can put our brains together and come up with solving these complicated but not insolvable issues that we've been faced in the past pretty much 2 decades, or if you really want to be totally honest, since the original Penn Station was demolished. And the vote was unanimous, enthusiastic. I want to thank Maki Livesey and Samir Lavingia, who attended the meeting and spoke during the public session. It was also attended by our neighbor Eugene Senegaliano, who's been very involved with the Penn Station GPP. All three spoke in favor of our effort and were very supportive, and I thank them for that.
Leila, is it safe to assume that that you will give the same kind of overview that you gave to the committee, you'll give that to the full board on Thursday night? Because that was perfect way to walk everyone through it. I mean, yes. We've all, the exec committee and the officers and the committee chairs have been more or less involved in this, especially since everyone is on the land use committee, but the full board has gotten snips and snipes of it. And yes, the way it was presented at the committee meeting was perfect for people that aren't quite aware of all the little nuances, intricacies, and tears and blood and sweat that went into this.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's a long and rich and convoluted history that it's incumbent on us to actually know it, so that we understand why we are, taking this step and launching this effort. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Okay, good. Maki.
Thanks, Vicki. Just a quick question. But first, I wholeheartedly support this effort for establishing a working group. So thank you, Leila, for spearheading that. I do want to offer, though, having reviewed the draft resolution, a couple of friendly amendments, and I didn't know if you'd prefer that I do this now or offline.
Why don't you give Leila, you want to hear what they are now? I think you should hear what they are now.
Yes, sure. And, like if you want to give the sort of like general overview, and then you and I can work on language offline. Absolutely.
There's just two that I wanted to bring up, other than the please spell out all acronyms general statement. The first one was about the relocation of Madison Square Garden, because I know it's been previously mentioned and it might be something for future consideration. If we should add to the line, I believe it's line 180, where it currently says, while also being home to a world-renowned sports and concert arena, to add while also being the present home, both to imply that it had been elsewhere before and the potential for it to move again.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then also on line 185, just to include the landmarks piece of it, because, I have to put in a plug for landmarks and to be inclusive of as many committees as possible on the board. The line reads cohesive with existing urban fabric, to add cohesive with existing and historical urban fabric. And I think that theme repeats a couple of times.
Yes, absolutely.
Would that be all right?
Yes.
I think they can
Perfect.
go,
That's
they
all I
can
had.
go in at this point, Layla, correct?
Yes. Yes.
That can be put into, Maki, if you could give the wording to Marisa for inclusion into the reso, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thanks for hearing me out. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you,
work, good
Maki.
work. Anyone else? Any comments or thoughts? It's a big undertaking. I think
I
that's.
know, I
yeah.
know. It is really daunting, and but you know, I actually use this absolutely you know, beautiful quote from Nelson Mandela that I have on my screensaver saver that says, you know, anything is impossible until it's done. So it's like,
Yes. All right, we are prepared. Anyone else?
Vicki, you have a hand up from the attendees, Catherine Ellington.
I beg your pardon?
Catherine Ellington has her hand up as an
Oh.
attendee. She's a board member. She has.
Okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Hi,
Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm okay. This project excites me. So I had two questions and I'll start with a comment.
Okay.
So LaGuardia Airport has a slogan that says, "We solve the problem." And it's a whole brand new place, supposedly, but it still feels it's brand new. It's like we're doing all these things that are brand new. So my question is, when I move through there, I see all these wonderful signs that say the Penn District. Is that what we're talking about? What is now going to be known as the Penn District? And does this include terrain that's like North Chelsea that is also historic, where the zip code is 1001, right? I don't know if that means that they're the first zip code in America, but I know that this is where Tin Pan Alley is, and this is where there's a rich fabric of both contemporary and so brand new and so wonderful, as well as historic coexisting, which I think is something that the city does so well. It tries to embrace, when we the people remind folks that there's a lot to be preserved as we're advancing the future. But I just wondered if places like One Penn Plaza, which has some pop space in it, I think these, you know, these spaces are being built as we're talking. And so I just wanted to get a little more specific about the terrain that we're talking about. And I don't know if that's in the.
yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for joining the exec and being excited. The intent of the work that we're doing is actually, and the intent of the resolution that we're going to vote on is to basically say that we are going to go to work. We don't know what will be the conclusions of you know, the work that we will do. We know, generally speaking, that we want basically our district to be taken into account in a respectful fashion that will address our needs. The Penn campus that you see, you know, placated on all these, you know, construction sites is actually the tagline of a developer, Vornado, to name them.
Right.
We're not quite sure actually why they believe that they own the Penn campus. It is their own creation and fabrication. They're a private developer. I mean, you know, they are allowed to use any vocable that they want, but basically the Penn campus is not something that we have anything to do with. Penn campus is, you know, this Vornado marketing scheme. Now, that being said, Vornado is a property owner in the area, and, you know, as such, their interest will be taken into account. But, you know, we don't cater to special interest, and that's exactly what we want to do. We want to step back and really look at what is the public interest, what is at stake for the public, generally speaking. And it is a complicated area because, you know, it's not like, you know, a typical residential district where you have people who live there and, you know, they live there, they raise their families, go to work, come back, and, you know, this is where they live. Or a business district where you have, you know, office space that is occupied from 9 to 5, and then, you know, that's pretty much it. This is the largest transit hub in the Western Hemisphere. It is the second largest transit hub in the world. It is very, very critical for our regional economy. 30% of the US GDP is actually generated by the Northeast Corridor. And Penn Station is the neuralgic spot on this Northeast Corridor that goes into Washington, D.C. So it is very critical for all these reasons. But one could make the case that it is actually a national issue. But at the same time, this is our home. This is our district. And we know best because, as you said, it is both a, very critical piece of infrastructure. It is the home to historic resources that are very important, that we care for deeply and that we want to preserve. It is an area that is traveled by thousands of pedestrians with sidewalks that are not adequate. It is the home to a number of headquarters and large office buildings. And it is a site that is, that has some development opportunities in a context where housing is direly needed. And I'm sure that, housing will be part of the conversation. So the idea is to basically say, okay, let's get together, let's roll our sleeves and figure out how we're going to make all of it work so that we come up with actually a zoning framework, a zoning plan that will basically guide what is to come, both for, how do we fix our sidewalks and enlarge them so that people can walk? How do we create more open space? How do we preserve our view corridors on the Empire State Building, which is, something that is very critical and very important? How to preserve our historic resources? And basically saying, we need to do all of it because up until now, some have done bits of it, a little bit of a special permit for MSG, a little bit of an upzoning driven by the state, mostly to favor a private developer, in this case, Vornado. And we're basically saying, no, let's step back and let's do a comprehensive plan.
Thank you for the clarification. And again, I just want to clarify that some of the Vornado public spaces are private spaces are public. So for example, to get out of the Long Island Railroad at this point in time, if you're in one part of Penn Station, you move through One Penn Plaza. These were my points. So
yes,
I guess
you can. I mean, there are plenty of egress and not all of it.
Right. And not all of it is well known to the public.
Thank God.
Right. So this conversation is well needed because not all of it. I mean, I remember when the Moynihan Trailhead opened, people were still going, nobody knew. So I would walk through there and nobody knew to go that was an opening. So even sharing the information and opening a dialogue is so important. Thank you for taking time with me.
No, of course. Thank you. And thank you so much for your enthusiasm.
Catherine, thank you. Kudos to you for tuning in. This is wonderful. This is a first. I love it.
And I just have to say, my family had to straighten me out because we got on an Amtrak train. We went to Moynihan Train Hall, and I was telling my family it's all new, and they're like, in very uneventful terms, told me, this is not new. We used to take this train from this part of the station when we were growing up. And so that kind of rich history, like, what are you talking about? We know this train station. You don't know where I'm always accused of not knowing where I'm going, but I get there. Anyway.
Well, let me tell you, given your interest in the fact that you have joined us today, I know I would, and I'm sure Layla would welcome any work that you would like to do on this project because it's going to be a doozy. Yeah,
it is, and I welcome that. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Okay, anyone else on commenting or questions? That was pretty impressive. I love the fact that we got one of our other members to join us.
It's great. It is great.
Very good. Okay, so I think that takes care of land use. Why don't we do landmarks while you're still on a roll, Layla?
Sure. I don't have the reso package in front of me, so I may not refer to the correct address, and maybe Maki, you can help me. I think it's 280 Park Avenue South is the address.
281.
281. Thank you. This is an individual landmark. The cross street is 22nd Street. And the applicant the application read as a proposed canopy for a restaurant that is located within the building, which is actually used as a museum, a photography museum. It so happened when the applicant actually came to present that said canopy has been installed without the proper permit. So it was not really an application, but a legalization for work done without permit. And basically, the way we look at these applications, that we ask ourselves two questions: was the work done without a permit, while knowing fully that a permit was needed, or was it an oversight that could be explained, as a genuine oversight? And the second question that we ask ourselves is, if this had come to us as an application, would we be supportive? Do we believe that it is harmonious and acceptable for the landmark? Basically, we answered no to those two questions. The applicant had gone through an extensive permitting process, so they were fully aware that a permit would be needed to install a canopy. They decided to go ahead and install one anyway without the proper LPC permits, and which they kind of admitted to that during the meeting. And the committee felt that the canopy that is currently installed is absolutely not contextual, does not work at all with the building, is not contextual, is not pleasing to the eye. They have done some weird electrical wiring that is entirely exposed, really not on par with the quality of the building. And the committee felt pretty strongly actually that we should deny this application.
Okay, and that was
And the vote
unanimous.
was unanimous, yeah.
Right. Okay, anybody have any? Oh, Malky.
Sorry, it's a two-fer today. Quick question referenced the number of bolts that they drilled into the building. There was some conversation about it, and I thought that the person on the committee, the applicant, mentioned that it was 10, and I did actually double check that. But the reso now is back to 8. But when I counted the actual slide deck, there's actually 15. So can we go with at least 10? Just because I think the last whereas is speaking to the detrimental way in which it was installed. I just want to make sure that the number is as high as is accurate.
Yes, absolutely. My recollection is that they said 10, but only that they used some of them through the mortar rather than punching into.
You're right. You're right.
The
Yes.
stone. The thing though is that, quite frankly, I don't know that this makes that much of a difference. Patching up mortar is actually not necessarily that easy. And the reality is that, even if you go through the mortar, I mean, it's better or it's less worse, but the bolts themselves are actually so big that they do, puncture the stone. And, it's not desirable altogether.
So are we changing it to 10?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I'll include that in the email.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maki.
Thanks, Maki. Anyone else? Okay, and you had one on landmarks, correct, Layla? Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. T&E, EJ, we're having you go first Thursday night, if that's okay.
That is fine.
Okay. And you can go right now.
Okay, thanks. We had two resolutions and a presentation this month. The first application was an application for a sightseeing bus stop. It's relatively straightforward. It's an application for a new location for a bus stop by Go New York Tours, which does business as Top View Sightseeing. The location that was recommended by DOT after assessing multiple applications for multiple stops by the tour company is on Fifth Avenue between East 35th and 36th Streets. As I said, this is a relocation of one of their existing stops from a couple blocks north of that. The proposed location would be shared with at least 3 MTA bus lines. So the proposed location is actually already used as a bus stop by multiple city bus lines. There was widespread concern for this location. The members of the committee and residents who live on the block who are in attendance expressed concern that this is becoming an over-congested location, that there are a lot of noise and congestion problems on the block already, and members of TNE who did diligence on this location, on other locations further south, believed that there would actually be this would be better situated a couple blocks south, not between 35th and 36th, but probably south of 34th, more likely south of 33rd, because I don't know if having sightseeing buses drop off and pick up right in front of the Empire State Building is a very good idea. But in general, the committee had concerns. The committee thought that there would be better locations further south. Residents had concerns. Residents pointed out that there would be better locations that were not directly in front of residential areas, but rather were in the commercial blocks further south. The Department of Transportation members in attendance could not tell us why they had selected this location. And
What else is new?
What else is new? And the committee ultimately decided to recommend denial of DOT's recommended location for between 35th and 36th Streets. Strongly recommend that DOT consider more suitable locations, as we discussed, further south of 34th Street, which was amenable to not only the residents that were in attendance, but also the applicant themselves. The applicant applied for prospective locations further south. And meanwhile, in the meantime, the applicant can continue to operate at their prior location. So CB5, TNE recommended that CB5 deny DOT's recommended location, recommended that DOT consider more suitable locations further south, and requested that DOT explain why they recommended this location in the first place. The vote was unanimous.
You know, if I remember correctly, the representative from DOT said they would look into it because the question kept coming up. Why not? Why not? And I believe she said she would get back to us. Why do I think I know what the answer to my next question is going to be? Did they get back to us?
Marisa, did you happen to get anything, did the board office happen to get anything from Colleen?
No.
Okay. All right. Layla.
So the location to the south is actually pretty residential as well. Do you know what is the position of those residents? Because they may actually not be totally on board with having yet another bus drop off, because there's actually quite a few in this area, you know, towards 28, 29, 27, 26.
Yeah, it's a highly congested area already. We were our committee specifically looked at locations from 31 to 36 And ultimately, in particular, took a look at the blocks from 31 to 33, kind of the Koreatown commercial area that we thought would be better situated than the recommended block between 35 and 36.
Okay, and I don't want to belabor this, but did you consider areas further north, like in the 40s?
They already have sightseeing pickups on Fifth Avenue further north. In particular, they were trying to relocate a stop that I believe was at something like 39th and move it further south. So I don't think they would be interested in that in locations further north at all. We were trying to help find a better location than where they were currently situated at 39th and find something that was, further to the south.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Anyone else? Some things never change. Okay, anything else? Did you have just one reso?
No, we had a second resolution from Times Square Hotel Owner
Oh, right,
LLC
right.
for
Bollard.
revocable consent to add bollards and a sidewalk snow melting system at 1568 Broadway.
Right.
The frontage is on West 47th Street. The sidewalk snow melt system and the bollards would be installed in front of a theater that is already undergoing reconstruction, so not occupied currently, intended to augment the reconstruction that is currently going on at 1568 Broadway. After a lot of discussion, we learned and by doing diligence, we learned that the bollards were the DOT recommendation for that block, for that section of sidewalk in front of the theater entrance. The bollards would aesthetically match anti-terrorism bollards on the avenue, but would wrap and connect a section of 47th Street that didn't currently have bollards because of transit underneath the sidewalk. They would not be as highly rated as the security bollards on the avenue, but they would aesthetically match and would be useful in terms of guiding pedestrians and keeping them out of the street. The sidewalk snow melt system is fairly standard and commensurate with other sidewalk melt systems in the area and at similar facilities. And we received assurances from the building operator that the snow melt system would not, completely replace manually clearing the sidewalk, which the building would continue to be responsible for if the sidewalk melt system ever, didn't completely do that or operate appropriately. So all of that being the case, we recommended approval of the application.
Unanimously. Yeah, okay. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions? Layla?
Yeah, sorry, EJ. Is it the SL Green building? Or like who is the applicant? Who's paying for the bollards?
Times Square Hotel Owner LLC.
I think it's the building that is owned by SL Green. Do you know if who was actually behind, like, spearheading this application? Is it NYPD that said you're security at risk and you need bollards, or do they want bollards because it's chic? And
it was a DOT recommendation. DOT recommended that they complete and extend the bollards, which were anti-terrorism bollards on the avenue, which make it as far as the corner and wrap. There is a diagram that kind of indicates where the city rated bollards end on 47th Street and where this stretch of sidewalk begins. And the DOT recommendation was to match the styling of the bollards, but to install the bollards specifically to protect pedestrians on the sidewalk, not necessarily from a full frontal vehicle assault like the anti-terrorism bollards would, but to prevent kind of side strafing from cars that are traveling down 47th Street during, egress and entrance at the theater, when crowds would be spilling onto the sidewalk.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks.
Layla, are you saying that that SL Green owns the Times Square Hotel? I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Yeah, I believe so. I think that it's a SL Green property, and the reason I'm asking is that it is my understanding that casino licenses are going to be considered for downstate, which they have been permitted by the state legislature, I think last year, and now the commission and different boards that approve these licenses are actually being formed, and applicants are actually gearing up to apply for casino licenses. And it is my understanding that SL Green is considering an application for this particular location where they would like to apply for a casino license.
Oh,
So, and it's not that it really has any direct connection with the merits of bollards, but I was thinking in a more like comprehensive fashion. That this is maybe one piece of a bigger proposal that may come to us.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah, that is.
Thank you.
That is not something that was raised anywhere anytime during our diligence.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not going to volunteer that information.
Anyone else have any comments or questions for EJ? Okay, seeing none, that takes us to Bex, Renee, and the budget.
Yes. Hi, Julie. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Vicki, thank you. Sorry about earlier. I'm sorry I had a very faulty connection. This Bex meeting, we had the budget, all things budget. As you know, each year we are required to submit our budget priorities, which inform infrastructure planning and the efficient and equitable delivery of services to the community boards and communities citywide. That includes 40 capital and 25 expense requests. And the identification of our most pressing needs. Our most pressing needs were identified this year as housing, which included affordable housing and homelessness, quality of life, which included all the quality of life issues, including serious crime, economic development, and recovery. Our number one top expense item was the creation of the public realm. And even though that's not one of the top three issues, we kept that from year to year to year because we, as a board, we have always asked for that. And what we tend to do is ask for our requests over and over and over again till hopefully they are funded. I'm not going to go through all of the requests, but they're included in the packet if anyone has any questions. Some of the requests around schools, we are still following up on. There's a request that we have in there regarding bins as opposed to plastic that was just funded. A study was funded by the governor this weekend, so we can take that out and we can put something else in. We're going to talk about that. Other than that, I don't know if anybody has any questions about the requests.
All right. Does anyone have anything to either comment on or question?
Many of them are around housing, funding for supportive housing, funding for affordable housing. Some of them are quite technical. Quality of life includes sanitation, it includes policing, NCO, keeping the business district policing unit that has been put in place, things like that. The economic development, the grants for small businesses, support for the bill that Councilmember Rivera has introduced for legacy businesses, things like that we've identified that are really, really important to the district. The committee itself was split into teams, and we've reached out to all of the committees on the board and all of the chairs. So they all had input. All of you have had input into what has been important over the year for the district. So that's how we came to all of these requests. And again, we do carry them from year to year to year, because as we know, sometimes it takes a while for things to get funded.
Okay, Leila.
Just to say fantastic work, and it's so daunting and so appreciative that your committee does it year after year. So bravo and thank you.
I have to say, my committee is awesome. Everybody on my committee, they are awesome. They really are great. So
That's great. That's great. Okay, does anyone else have any comments or questions? All right. Before I see if the public has anything to add or question, I wanted to mention certain committees. There are committees that meet but don't necessarily have action items. And I think it would be a good idea. I want to get all your input on this. I think that when a committee has a meeting, it's different if there's nothing to be discussed and no applications for any kind of action, to disregard it at the full board meeting. But my feeling is that if a committee holds even a discussion or some sort of non-action item or discussion, that a short report should be given to the board, so that the board is aware, other members are aware that committee was not just idly bypassing that month. And I just wanted to get your input on if you think that's a good idea. Renee.
I think I absolutely agree with you. I think it's particularly important for Bex. I think Bex hears a lot of issues. A lot of them are non-action issues. I think they're very important to the board and the community as a whole. And sometimes it just sits with us. So I'm absolutely supportive of this idea.
Yeah, I think it'll help also with non-committee members having more information on what's going on, and maybe they'd want to join the committee not on a regular basis, but just for a particular issue that's come up, or, I just think it's a better idea that everyone is aware that work has been going on, even though it's not in the form of an action. So if everyone agrees, I don't think we'll do it this time because I'm just talking about it now, and I haven't talked to, I think SLAP committee met, even though they didn't have an application, and I believe Parks also. So next go round, they would make a short report. Doesn't have to be lengthy. Everyone's in agreement? Good, lots of nods. Okay, at this point, Marisa, is there anyone from the attendees? Let's see if I can pull that up to see if anyone has any comments or questions. Please raise your hand. We have 3 people on, but I don't see anything resembling a question or a comment. And no new business. Is everyone, does anyone have any new business or any questions overall before Thursday night? Okay, and I thank you all for attending. The meeting is adjourned. I will see you all Thursday evening.
Thank you. See you Thursday.
Night.